Remember to watch part 1 before watching this. World of Kabuto. Aaron thinks that this will be easy because, hey, the Eiffel Tower's in the image. Haha, French. And I know it's the Tokyo Tower, but remember, it's still for kids making this series. But when we enter the dimension, we quickly realize we're adapting Godspeed Love. So Aaron comes across a man carrying a bowl of tofu who, despite being in a apocalypse setting, doesn't have a care in the world, it seems. And he starts quoting his grandmother. And he introduces himself as Aiden Alaric. And he explains 7 years ago, a giant asteroid carrying aliens known as worms crashed onto Earth, which basically ruined the environment, and the worms, who have the power of super speed and the power to disguise themselves as anyone, have basically supplanted humanity, and the only one really keeping civilization is the Zek Corporation, who makes the armored mass riders for this universe, which give them the powers to clock up, so they also got super speed. And Zek also fights worms. But it turns out that Zek has been infiltrated by the worms and created their own armored mass riders, known as Kabuto, Gold, Silver, and Bronze, who want to use the Eiffel Tower to broadcast the clock down, which will slow down all the armored riders so that they can't use their super speed to fight them, and they will rule all Earth. Kaito wants to steal the clock up system, and then there's fighting, and Aaron takes out Silver and Bronze with Kabuto attack ride, and then they find a way to reverse the clock down feature to make it a double clock up, which combined with Kabuto's hyper clock up gives him the ultra hyper clock up, which makes him move so fast he's able to defeat Kabuto Gold and even travel back in time and try to stop the asteroid, which he manages to break up the asteroid so it becomes less of a problem since there's less worms and the asteroid doesn't destroy Earth's environment, so the worms aren't as big as a threat. Kabuto leaves the photo in a much better world. World of music. The mass riders of this dimension are separated into 3 different musical clans of trumpeter, guitar, and drummer. And Kaito wants to steal the scrolls of their history, and it's up to Aaron to unite all 3 of the clans to fight a giant monster. Hibiki leaves the photo after the clans are united. Decade gets the cards and a final attack ride and some really cool music moments to defeat the giant monster. And everyone returns to the original dimension with their mission done. But it turns out that the Dex we thought we were following isn't actually not the original Dex and is actually an evil alternate universe Dex who became Mass Rider Apollo, and this dimension was conquered by evil riders. Evil Dex's plan was for Aaron to literally destroy the riders, not figuratively, and force all the multiverse to unite into one, to be led by the organization Shocker, which is like an alternate United Alliance of Evil. And then we meet Aaron's sister, Rose, and some backstory time. Aaron and Rose, his parents are dead and they were raised by a butler, and Rose had the ability to see and open portals into alternate dimensions, which Aaron used because Rose couldn't go into the dimensions. And this explains Natsumi's vision from the first episode of the Rider War, with Rose being forced by evil Dex to give her the vision, and for her to create the Decker driver for Aaron to travel to the dimensions and fight the Riders. Kaito also reveals how he knew who Aaron was because they used to be childhood friends and they went into some alternate dimensions together. Until one day where Aaron forgot Kaito. I don't know, Kaito fell into a ditch or he was peeing or something and Aaron left him behind, stranding him in an alternate dimension, which Kaito was forced to live by himself and feed off of sea cucumbers, which explains his obsession with them. He was there for 3 weeks until the prototypes to the Ace Riders, Heart, Club, and Diamond, found him, and that's why Kaito was found in the world of cards. Also note that Masked Rider Diamond is a female. A bunch of apologizing later, and Rose reveals a upgrade to the Deca driver known as the K-Touch, which after he clicks all the buttons representing the Masked Riders in order: Kuga, Octo, Dragon Knight, Fies, Spade, Drummer, Kabuto, Den-O, Kiva, Final Form Rider, Decade, which gives Aaron the Decade complete form, which is his final form, and lets him summon different final form riders. Then a couple episodes later, some police officer who traveled from the future wants to arrest Kaito because, he's the thief of time and he's been robbing people throughout the dimensions, and, the whole shenanigans with the world of Den-O. And then he transforms into Masked Rider New Den-O patrol form, revealing that Ted, is a descendant of Eddie from Den-O. To turn into patrol form, he uses an Imogen stuck into a past named Eve. But then Kaito tries to prove himself that he's good and blah blah blah, a bunch of shenanigans. A fight with Shocker, and Ted saves the life of an Imogen that he names Teddy and contracts with, becoming New Den-O strike form. Eve gets jealous and turns into patrol form by herself and fights Kaito, but then Rose reveals a new K-Touch for him. And unlike the movie, I actually know that DN is a secondary writer, not a movie writer, so we'll edit the complete form to have him with secondary writer cards and be able to summon the final forms of secondary writers. Eve is defeated, Ted arrests her and goes off into the future and lets Kaito go free. Prime World. Shocker breaks into space prison and frees Shadow Moon and Count Dragon. And then we meet the real Dex, who, for the sake of differentiating, like the same way you call Kamen Rider Ichigo instead of just Kamen Rider, you can call this Masked Rider Ecto instead of just the original Masked Rider. And we meet Danaeus again, who, of course, is Shadow Moon. But in the evil Dex's universe, he was good and became Masked Rider Helios. Some shenanigans later, and the two cousins decide to fight together, and they fight against evil Dex as Aaron fights Count Dragon, and Kaito tries blowing him up until some monsters get in the way, letting him escape. Back to Shocker's Evil Temple. Then in the endgame of the series, Evil Dex uses Shocker's temple to force all the dimensions to merge quicker, and he kidnaps Natsume to make his bride. Aaron and Kaito try saving her, but get defeated by the full forces of Shocker. But then, because Aaron destroyed metaphorically the past riders, they're coming to save their new friend through the dimensions. And so we have our big Avengers moment of all the past riders coming together. See, kids, this is why you should be nice to people. And so the Rider War begins. And because Aaron changed his future, they're all on his side fighting against Shocker. They try defeating Apollo, but Shadow Moon intercepts them and nearly defeats Aaron until, hey, who's that driving in the background? It's our setup for the next season, Masked Rider Double. And he is able to turn into some different forms, and he bats Shadow Moon into the Shocker Temple and leaves to be in next season. Shadow Moon activates the temple's defense system, which turns into a giant mecha. But Kaito finds the giant Masked Rider Jumbo, and uses Final Attack Ride on Decade, which transforms into a giant Decade belt. And Jumbo puts him on, activates the K-Touch, and one giant battle and giant rider kick concludes, and all Shockers defeated, and Apollo is also defeated. But Evil Dex survives the explosion, and he's like, Honoro de Kaito! And escapes into the multiverse. Natsume, Aaron, and Kaito don't really care right now. They'll find him eventually. But for now, they're just happy that they saved all the riders, prevented the dimensional merge, destroyed Shocker, and lived to see another day.